Welcome to Truman's Town Hall with your host, Matt Truman.
Hello, this is Matt Truman. Thank you for downloading this episode. Thank you for sharing with a friend. Welcome to Truman's Town Hall. Today is December the 12th, 2022, and boy, oh boy, do I have a program for you. I've spent a lot of time, a lot of effort on producing this audio podcast for you today, and I hope you listen all the way through. It's very important. You may have to take it in chunks because it's going to be a long one. But I'm going to break down a lot of the things that are being discussed on social media, especially over on Brick City Town Hall. I'm going to break down the last meeting, what happened today, where they canceled today's city council meeting. I'm going to break it all down for you, folks, and I'm going to do my best to break it down Barney style so we all can understand. And now let's get started. So the first clip I'm going to play for you, it's an interesting clip. It has nothing to do with the water infrastructure, but it's very telling as to where your city staff is. So I'm going to play that for you real quick.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Brian, I noticed that the Parks and Rec position is still in there. Is it still staff's recommendation to move that into the Director of Public Services, Public Works Department?
It is still my recommendation to do that, sir, yes.
Okay. I was told that moving the Parks and Tech to a Parks Manager, from Parks Manager to a Parks Technician, was due to an issue with the personnel in that position. Was that true?
Sir, I'm not at liberty to talk about those particular matters in this forum. As I've stated publicly, the recommendation that I have made is specifically related to operational functions that will change in light of the YMCA providing additional support and stepping up those services that they offer to the city, as well as having additional staff available with regard to the administrative operations of the city and how they relate to supporting the Parks and Recreation Commission, as well as other aspects of the organization.
Okay, so if I understand your answer correctly, you're not going to address that question?
That is correct, sir. I'm sorry, my apologies, but I think I just did answer that question.
Well, yeah, but I like to narrow it down to make it simple.
Okay.
It's just the way I am. Not any detail, just in general.
So
you're not going to address that?
Sir, I've already stated publicly why I've made my recommendation.
Okay.
All right. So he could, and when I say he, the interim city manager, interim is a placeholder. He's the placeholding city manager, making these big, broad decisions for the city, eliminating a position in the city or making a recommendation, right? But he could tell you why he's doing it. He's not doing it because there's a personal reason behind it. There's always these political, personal plays that goes on with Team Heights, Team Huber, and the city staff. And the citizens are left holding the bag, wondering why. Now, I'm not saying sometimes it's necessary, right? Sometimes it may be necessary. Sometimes it may not be necessary. But when you're talking about a citizen who's a manager, who was just promoted to that position, who did a fine job. I mean, come on, parks haven't been better in Huber than they are right now. So there's something internal that you and I, right, especially you, if you're a citizen in Huber Heights, don't know about. Moving on, we're going to go into the meat of this podcast, and we're going to talk about the water infrastructure, starting with Council Member Glenn Otto.
My statements in recent meetings. We've been at this water infrastructure issue now for well over a year. As a matter of fact, the meeting about a year ago today, actually a year ago tomorrow, we had extensive discussion about this and what our needs may be, and we actually talked about a $4 million number then, which is interesting considering what this report has come back with. I would urge my other council members to support me in requesting that we do a amendment to this ordinance next Monday to increase and make a line item of the water infrastructure replacement program and bring that total number to the $4 million. Now that we have what we said we needed to see last year, we now have it in hand, proof, and I'm fearful that if we don't start taking these steps now, we're only going to get ourselves a little bit deeper. So I would hope that others would join me in that. I think it's absolutely necessary, and it's one of those things that we actually have to provide our residents quality infrastructure and water. So, that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, so that's Glenn Otto. Oh, that was his opening salvo to all of this water infrastructure discussion at the last meeting. Okay, real calm, collected. Here's my thought. I hope others will join me on this. Well, they've already went there and had their mind made up. Their debate was already conspired, if you will. It was already put together, right? And we know that by what happened today. Do you guys remember? I don't know. If you're members of Brick City Town Hall, then you read what happened today. And if you're not a member of Brick City Town Hall, here's what happened today. They canceled the meeting because there was going to be the budget vote today. And Richard E. Shaw Jr., Huber Heights City Council Ward 1, that Facebook page put out this. I received an email from the Clerk of Council at 8:53 a.m. on December 12th, 2022, providing notification that Councilmember Ed Lyons would not be available for the 6 p.m. City Council meeting on, well, the date you just said, December 12th, 2022. At 10:02 a.m., an email was sent by the mayor, Jeff Gore. I'm on the mindset that this meeting is important enough that all members of council be present. He goes on to say, it's my opinion we shouldn't have a meeting of this magnitude without all members. So let's stop right there. If that was a true email, and you can do a public records request, and we're just, kicking it around here on this podcast. If that was a true email, that goes way, 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 way against the charter. The mayor is not a dictator. I've been telling you people for many years that this is how this guy acts. I've had personal dealings with him. I don't trust him. He's lied to me, and I believe he's lying to the city. So if this is an email that he sent out to the city, he is purposely asking to violate the charter, your charter, ladies and gentlemen, of Huber Heights. The post goes on to say, I personally phoned the interim city manager, Brian Chetkowski, at 10:16 a.m. to advise that I have not spoken to Councilmember Lyons and was unclear of his absence reason. I also brought up the mysterious email from the mayor, which the city manager had not reviewed. I mentioned during the call that all potential controversial issues have been addressed and others, Councilmember Otto and Kitchen, plan to move all items forward. An email was received at 11:50 a.m. from the Clerk of Council advising that the City Council set for December 12, 2022 was canceled due to the lack of quorum. I phoned the Clerk of Council at 12:19 p.m. to inquire further on the email regarding the meeting cancellation. He advised that after the mayor's email, Council members Campbell, Burge, and Baker advised that they are unavailable. Well. Team Heights strikes again. Now it's in the legal realm. You take it from where the mayor says, we're not going to have this meeting. I'm going to cancel the meeting. And then I think the whip, right? If you know what, if you're into politics, the whip's the politician that goes around and talks to all the members of their party like, hey, you got to vote for this. You got to vote for this. You got to vote for this. Is it possible that the whip, who is Mark Campbell, went around and said, hey, we got to stay home too? Because it's not going to go our way. We're not going to get that tie vote, and it goes to the mayor, and everything passes. Just questions, folks. I'm just asking questions that you guys are asking. I know you're asking because you're asking them to me. That's why I'm doing this podcast. Anyway, all right, here we go. So they're working together to put off a budget vote that on one side, basic infrastructure is very important. On the other side, it's not. On the other side, you got you can spend all kinds of money on pet projects, but when it comes to basic infrastructure, you have this much trouble. My word. Ladies and gentlemen of Huber Heights, why do you pay taxes? Tell me. Do you pay taxes so you can have nice buildings, a music center that doesn't make as much money as they're telling you it does, right? An aquatic center that doesn't even break even. What about the Veterans Memorial? Oh, Lord, that's near and dear to me, folks. That's near and dear to me. They went out and borrowed money for a Veterans Memorial when there were already folks out there doing the work. They make stupid decision after stupid decision, and then they want you to think that, oh my, this Team Huber people, oh, they're obstructionists, they're crazies, they're wanting to crush the city. No, they want basic infrastructure. They want the people of Huber Heights to live in a city that has nice roads, clean water, workable water, right? All the basic, public safety, more cops to deal with crime because Lord knows they're going to be bringing in more people. So throughout this whole meeting, Jeff Gore and his folks kept saying, there's no plan. There's no plan. There's no source of funding. There's no plan. Well, Ed Lyons gave them an idea, and all I'm saying is this. I don't agree or disagree. I'm just saying this was an idea, and it was a plan that they looked over throughout the rest of the meeting.
Mayor, the funding source, 3.3, almost 3.4 million is estimated in the general fund alone. I know Brian has talked about and recommended that I think there's a presentation in February for us to talk about the water main replacement program and where we're going to get the money, and staff wanted to do that after the budget and after the beginning of next year, which I completely understand and agree with. But putting the additional money, which would be an additional $3.2 million into this particular budget, we can do that from the general fund alone and still have $10 million left over in an estimate at the end of next budget year. We could get a little bit more money, it sounds like, from the water fund, but $5.8 million in the TIF, Montgomery County TIF, is someplace else we can look at it. I remember our budget from staff was we are very strong financially. That's plenty to get the budget started on this water main replacement for next year. And then the meetings that we're planning on having in February, where we're looking for a sustainable revenue source, would be the time we kick it off with kind of a shot in the arm with our current funds, and then hit those meetings in February with looking at staff's recommendation for a continued source, because obviously we're not going to be able to put in $4 million every year just from our existing funds, and I think everyone knows that. But to say that we don't have the existing funds now, it just simply is not true. The general fund alone will cover that with still $10 million left. And we're not exactly the piggy bank for the citizens and the taxpayers, but we do have a major issue with our water, and I would support that. Where staff recommends we get the money, I'm fine with the general fund, but if they come up with something by Monday, I'm willing to do that too. But to answer your question, Councilman Otto, I am supporting this. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so there was a plan. That was a plan, and throughout this entire meeting, we need a plan. We don't have a plan, but he gave you a plan at the beginning of the meeting. Or at the beginning of this discussion. Not that I'm the greatest Ed Lyons fan. I'm not. I do question why he switched sides, though. You ever wonder? What happened? I don't know. And now they want to raise water rates after this plan was already given. $10 million left over. Because what they talked about, and I'll just go back just a minute, TIF funds, tax increment financing, TIF funds are meant for infrastructure. Now, the city of Huber Heights played that a little loose and hard, and they were able to build buildings such as the Aquatic Center and the Music Center and their little pet projects. But TIF funds are meant for infrastructure, period. And then the talk began to escalate into raising rates, water rates, assessments, bonds. Bonds are nothing more than borrowing money. That's what a bond is. You're borrowing money, much like they borrowed money to build the Veterans Memorial when there were other folks out there willing to build it without them having to buy bonds. Anyway, here's that discussion about raising your rates.
And we're still talking about it.
Right.
So we're not talking about just increasing the budget. We're talking about investing
Doing some
$4
work.
million in the infrastructure.
Absolutely, yes.
Jim, where do you get the money? Bottom line. And if we need it, Brian, where do we get the money?
You're going to have to raise rates.
What are the other options?
Well, there are a few. You could look to break the city down into districts, and you could assess to property owners. That's an option. You could look to bond, sell bonds, and break it off in bigger chunks. But you could look to coordinate that with the road construction work and make that a combination of an increase in income tax, special assessments, as well as increase in rates. There are pluses and minuses to all of these particular options, but effectively there is not sufficient revenue there is not sufficient funds available within the budget for an on-demand injection of $4.5 million into the water fund, or an additional $3.2 million into the water fund without consequence.
Tax the citizen, tax the citizen, tax the citizen. That's what it's all about in this city government. They're going to come back to you folks this May. They're coming back, and they're going to say, listen, it's just a renewal. It's no new taxes. They're coming for your money. They want to build all their pet projects, and then when it comes time to build actual infrastructure, now you're being told there's no money left to build infrastructure, basic infrastructure, water mains. Water mains are breaking all over Huber Heights, more so than any city. I am almost positive on that. This isn't like, oh, this is an average thing. No, it's not. They're breaking all over the place. They're breaking underneath newly paved roads, ladies and gentlemen. Newly paved roads. So you wasted the money that you paved the road with because you got to dig that up and fix the mains. And how do they fix those? They put wraps on them. You know, just a little patch, a little duct tape. We'll duct tape it up. Lord, I hope you're paying attention. Hope you're still with me.
So, Brian, you had stated before, just to ask for some clarification, because I know everybody up here can add and subtract, but there isn't anyone up here who understands, I think, budgeting. Quite frankly, when it comes to effects of budgets and bond rates and fund balances and fund values, and quite frankly, it's the reason that we pay Jim and why the city manager understands those things. So yes, if it's just a matter of looking at a ledger and adding dollars and subtracting dollars, that's pretty easy. 7th grade math adds millions of dollars plus millions of dollars and subtracts it. But Brian, you stated earlier, if this money was to come out of the general fund or these other revenue sources, on the heels of $20 million worth of other investments that we have planned, what does that do? And I need,
I need the gloves to come off. What is the bare bones here? What is this council going to give up or have to make changes to in trying to add an additional $3.5 million for water in the 2023 budget?
Oh, that is so important. So important. What you just heard. That's the passive-aggressive attitude of your mayor saying no one understands this. Only he does, and Jim and Brian. We're the only guys that understand budgeting, and we're the only guys that understand what TIFs are and bonds are and all these things we're discussing tonight. The mayor doesn't have faith in anyone except himself. And when he came on as mayor, he told me personally on a podcast that his job was to bring council together. That's his job.
Whatever negative image people associate with Huber Heights, but whatever it is, what I can tell you this, Matt, is if I'm elected on November 7th, that all changes on January 1st, 2018.
Good deal. Before we end this podcast, is there anything? It sounded like you left it all there, but is there anything else you want to let the folks listening know? Or
ultimately, this election is about finding a way for our council, our city government, to kind of get their act together to move forward for the residents and the people of this city. I think that happens with true, genuine leadership. And, I've been in a lot of leadership positions in companies I've worked for. I've been tasked on several different occasions to go into a situation where there's a team that's not working well together, needs to work more efficiently. I mean, you name it. I've been in all those kinds of scenarios. And I am very happy, I'm proud to say that I haven't failed in any of those scenarios yet. And if elected, I don't plan on failing this time. I think there's enough common ground with all the candidates who are running and all the people that are currently on council that however this turns or however this ends up, we can work together to move the city forward and do a lot of repair to our image and our brand as a city. And that is what this is all about.
That recording was done in 2017. There's a big difference. Something to be said from candidate Mayor Jeff Gore to now Mayor Jeff Gore, who enjoys stirring it up because he won't play the role as weak mayor. And the mayor that is trying to bring everyone together. He wants his ideas out front. And that's the difference between Mayor Jeff Gore in 2017 when I had that podcast with him and when I said, you know what? Hey, I like this guy. This guy's going to be good for Huber Heights. He's going to work hard for Huber Heights. And then it just crapped the bed. I mean, got to be honest. That's why you're having this dysfunction, folks. Leadership. Leadership directs. This guy, he's allowing all this. He is allowing all this. Everybody's like, oh, you're salty. There's one guy that always comes at, you're salty. It's not about being salty. It's about the people of Huber Heights, man. Wake up, people. Wake up. All right, moving on. You come on Truman's Town Hall. You're on record, baby. Come on now. Next clip.
I would say respectfully I disagree with that. I think throwing some capital at it now buys us that time to have that discussion and find those alternative funding sources. The problem I have with waiting is how much longer? Because, again, we had this conversation a year ago, and we only had the conversation a year ago because of the conversations were going on before that said, hey, we're having issues with our water infrastructure. So we've already delayed it immensely. Now we're going to continue to delay it, and every day we delay it is just another day that it's going to get worse. As far as I'm concerned, there aren't too many things that are just bottom line important when it comes to spending money in a community. Infrastructure is one of those things. Public safety services is another one of those things. Roads is another one of those things. After that, the rest is just icing on the cake, because those are the things we have to have. And I absolutely mean we have to have. And to me, this isn't a discussion of are we going to do it, but how are we going to get it done? We have to get this done. We've waited too long. We can continue to wait, but again, last year we talked about it and we said, oh well, we'll wait and we'll get this study, and then as soon as we get the study, then we'll jump on it if it says we need it. Well, we got the study. We got it. It says we need it. So now we want to talk about it some more? That's ludicrous, in my opinion. We're pushing this off and we're shoving it off. And to some of you that live in different areas, it may not be a big deal, but I guarantee folks in Anita's district probably are having issues, and folks in Kate's district are probably having issues, and they're probably concerned about it. And there's probably others in the South that are concerned that's coming to their neighborhood soon. There's just nothing more important than infrastructure to take care of for folks in a town. This is what people pay general taxes for. That's what they expect out of their government, is these things. And what truly frustrates me, these are things that I ultimately have no real issues with, because they're nice amenities. But we had no problem just dropping $1.5 million on a Veterans Memorial, and dropping I think it was pushing $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 on a BMX park. Didn't bat an eye about that. But our water infrastructure, we got to have massive conversations about our water infrastructure. Really? I don't see how our financial condition has changed so much since last year that we could drop a couple $1 million on extras for our community, but today we can't put this $4.5 million into our water infrastructure. It's that important to me. I will not support this budget unless that number's in there. Thank you, Mayor.
You might remember what I put out a few videos about being all pissed off that they were going to end the stupidest idea, which they ended up not doing, which is applause to them. The mayor and council was eliminating or more or less merging the Veterans Commission and the Arts and Beautification Commission, right? I was the first one to go to city council to speak because I was angry. I wrote something on the mayor's Facebook page. He said, well, come up and talk about it or whatever. I don't know how that all went down. I'd have to go back and look. But I went up there and I spoke and I said, this is stupid. And it's stupid because we were out here already getting things done, and you knew about it because you wanted to be a part of it. And when you weren't allowed to have an officer's position on our little board we had, that's when you got angry. And then when you got elected, you screwed us all. And you created this, and now you're taking out $1 million bonds after we're out. I mean, folks, I went over it ad nauseum. We had a lot of things in place where you guys didn't have to take out that $1.5 million bond. You didn't have to do it. You could have put that into infrastructure, but you have piss poor leadership who don't think forthright. You have leadership who thinks only about their self and their political career, or think about their self and, my feelings are hurt because somebody does a podcast and dislikes my politics. Who cares what the hell I say on here? Really, honestly. I mean, I'm giving you information mixed in with a little of my opinion. You can throw my opinion out the door. It doesn't really matter, right? But he's right. They throw all this money. Glenn Otto is right. The city of Huber Heights throws all this money at bike parks and the Veterans Memorial and the Aquatic Center and the Music Center. And you just name all these pet projects. Now they're going to buy land and buy this and create, while pipes are bursting underground all over the city. Maybe not up north because, up north it's brand new infrastructure built through TIF dollars. Folks, you got to wake up, man. I don't know. Don't take it from me. I point this stuff out, and I've been pointing this stuff out for years, many, many years. And some listen, some don't. Some just say, oh, no, he's just angry at the mayor. No, it's not the mayor didn't come about until, what was it, 2017. I've been talking about this stuff since way before that, in the early 2000s. Okay? So this just isn't about the mayor. Yeah, the mayor's weak. Not only is he weak in the proper way of saying what his position is as a weak mayor, but he's weak as in a leadership. He's not a good leader. He's a good bullshitter. Very well at that. He's getting people that I thought he would never get people on his side. People that have told me, no, I see right there. And then they invite him over to the, hey, we're running for office party. You guys know the one with the horses and the poop. Anyway, moving on.
Thank you, Mayor. I hear about, things aren't going to happen overnight, and I get that. Brian, if I broke out my checkbook and wrote you a check for $10 million right now, can you put pipe in the ground tomorrow?
$10 million worth, no, sir.
You can't do that. I mean, no matter what, you can't do that. So we would be looking at, if we had the money today, the earliest we could probably make that happen be what, maybe, I'm going to guess maybe August.
Okay.
Is that fair? Is that reasonable with, what we got to do for studies, ordering pipe, getting pipe, all that kind of stuff? So August. So if I wait till August and I offer you the $10 million, then can you start putting it in August? Or do we got to wait another 8 months? The more we put it off, the further down the road it gets, is my point. And we can talk about how long it's going to take, but every month we wait another month. And we're not getting any closer to our goal, and that's my issue. We had quite a bit of discussion on this issue a year ago. Feel free to look it up, December 7th of last year. Plenty of discussion. I'm not sure exactly what the number is. I know I had it. But, Russ, how many feet of water main replacement went into the ground in 2022?
This year?
Yeah.
Well, with the project coming up, it's almost 8,000 feet.
No, how much has gone into the ground in 2022? How much has been completed?
Probably 4,000 feet.
Okay. That's more than I thought, because a couple meetings back, I thought it was stated that we hadn't gotten any of it in. We were still waiting on pipe.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. That's what's starting right now.
Okay, so we don't have any in the ground. So we put 0 feet in the ground in 2022 after having an extensive discussion at the end of last year.
Whoa. Wait a minute. Did you listen to that exchange about the pipe? 0 pipe has been in the ground in the city of Huber Heights, and it was just admitted to. It took a minute to get there, and it took Councilman Otto to question that and to finally drag it out. No, we got 4,000 feet. Well, I didn't know that. Okay, no, we don't have any in. We don't. You guys missed that, I think.
I'm not sure exactly what the number is. I know I had it. But, Russ, how many feet of water main replacement went into the ground in 2022?
This year?
Yeah.
Well, with the project coming up, it's almost 8,000 feet.
No, how much has gone into the ground in 2022? How much has been completed?
Probably 4,000 feet.
Okay. That's more than I thought, because a couple meetings back, I thought it was stated that we hadn't gotten any of it in. We were still waiting on pipe.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. That's what's starting right now.
Okay, so we don't have any in the ground. So we put 0 feet in the ground in 2022 after having an extensive discussion at the end of last year. This just seems like a whole lot of put it off, and this is a...
Well, sir,
please.
Sir, I think your comments are disingenuous in the fact that...
and you can, but sir, I'm speaking if you don't mind. But my point here is, I think this holds a lot more weight and importance than a lot of people up here on this dais think. If you survey our residents, I think you'd find that out. And the sooner we act, the better. I'm not saying we got to replace everything in 1 year. I'm not saying we got to fund it all in 1 year. But we certainly should put our best foot forward, get some money rolling so that we can get some things done while we're working through a long-term plan. Because to Mr. Campbell's point, we need a very long-term plan, because this is going to get quite expensive. So we're going to have to work on that. And no, I'm not going to say that I would be in favor of jacking up everybody's rates to pay for the whole thing. We're going to have to find multiple sources to do do this with. So it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of time. But we need to show something now. We're talking about showing our dedication to this. Well, this is how we do it. I think at this point, I've made all the comments I will. So, Mayor, thank you very much. I appreciate the time. I'll make no more comments on this subject.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have to pay attention to these council meetings because they will fill you up with a bunch of fluff, and say, oh, this is happening. Glenn asked the city engineer directly. First it was 8,000 feet? Then it was 4,000 feet when he was asked like really directly. And then he said, well, I thought a couple meetings back, nothing was in the ground. He goes, oh, you're right. We're just starting now. I don't know where you come from, but where I come from, I call that a lie. Wake up. You got to look at, if I was on council, I'd be looking at our city engineer. I'd be looking at our interim city manager and maybe trying to bring in a city manager real doggone quick. Because that's unacceptable. And it should be unacceptable to every person on council, but it's not. You know why? Because there's certain teams spread throughout council. And I'm giving you a little lesson on Huber politics tonight. This is how it works, and this is how it has been working for years. When are you, the one listening to this podcast, when are you going to wake up and realize that you're getting the short end of the stick and that you either need to, A, vote these people out or run for office yourself? Because I got news for you. These problems aren't going away. Basic infrastructure is what you pay taxes for. And if you don't have basic infrastructure, how's your city going to run? All these pet projects these council members keep floating for you, that's for them. That's not for you. They're going to say, oh, look, I made you a bike path, or I made you a little bike ramp. Look, veterans, I got you a memorial, even though there were folks out there already doing a memorial, but I went ahead and borrowed $1.5 million to build this memorial. Why, there were other people that would have done it voluntarily and got there was a plan and they had it all squared away, but we got mad at them, so we created our own little thing, and we borrowed just a little bit, $1.5 million, no big deal. And then we built a music center because we had that bench rock thing, it failed, so we had to do something. And now I know some buddies who develop land, so why not? I'll just build up the city, because if I get it up, right? If I get it up to 50,000 people in the city of Huber Heights, hey, then we're beholden to the federal government at that point. Folks, pay attention. Oh, you didn't know that? You didn't know that that's what the mayor wants to do? 50,000 people because we get more federal government funds? It's all about money. It's like these politicians get in office because they can't spend their own money because they ain't got none, because they're either in failed businesses or failed personal ventures, so they go into office so they can spend your money. It's weird, man. This is all weird stuff. And you have to be in the know, and you have to pay attention to get it, but I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you because I've been paying attention too damn long, and I don't even want to pay attention no more, but it's like a bad penny, man. It just keeps coming back. I am going to play something that I do like, that I thought was good. I'm going to play it. Mark Campbell.
The good news is, one of these days soon, we will have a plan, long-term, to address our water main infrastructure. With that said, Russ, our newer subdivisions that have been built within the last 10 years, what type of pipe material do they have?
It's the same ductile iron, it's class
Okay.
53, which is the bigger.
And ductile iron pipe has a life expectancy of what, about 100 years?
It should have about 100 years, but sometimes when corrosive soils, it seems to be lasting 60 to 80.
And the corrosive soils, based on the code and such today, is less of a problem.
Yes, because now we're using more gravel backfill back.
So let's talk about 10-year-old developments. The code is such that those pipes will probably last 100 plus years,
Yes.
which is the caveat to the plan. That's the skew. So I think you have between a $4 and $8 million problem per year. I don't care if you break it up into 16 million on 2 years, or if you go 5 million each year. That's about the size of the plan. We've given excellent service and excellent water quality since we've owned the water utility since 1995. No one can question that. We've had the same management company, and it happened to be the same company that owned it when it was private and managed it. Our water rates and sewer rates have been low. Is that not the study that we see each year, Jim?
Yes, we're in one of the top 2 or 3 lowest in the whole Dayton area.
And when we do water softening, did we appreciate any rate increase when we softened the water?
Yes, we did.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then when we did the well plant, the new well plant, we saw increases then too, right?
When we did
The new well plant, when the EPA required us to do a new well.
we did a new well, but that was part of the softening cost.
Yeah, prior to that.
We just closed the old plant. We hadn't done anything else besides that.
Okay, so when you did the softening, you already had the Rip Road well plant for several years prior to that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, when you originally put it in, you had to increase rates.
That was right before I got here.
You did?
I think so, okay.
It was when I was here. So we've increased rates when we've increased expenses, and we haven't been the user's piggy bank. We've increased them as we've needed it. So there is a study that needs to occur, because there's going to be some substantial debt retire, and we're going to be able to roll that in. And we don't know. This community may be fortunate enough, may be blessed, because I think God has continued to bless this community over 4 decades. You might have a project knock on your door that could answer all of these problems. So we don't know what the future holds.
I like that. I like that because I do believe that Huber Heights, my hometown, is one of the greatest cities around. I know. I bust on that city council like it's never been busted on before, but doggone it, they need to be held accountable, and they're not being held accountable by you. Because you're either afraid, you don't want to go, you don't want to ruffle feathers, you don't want them to come out to your house and, pick that little siding that you got hanging on the house or whatever. But you need to get on it. You need to be proactive, because this city council will do what they want, and you'll be left holding the bag like you're holding the bag now. Infrastructure is the most important thing for a city. If you don't have infrastructure, you don't have a city. Next is safety services. You got to have a police department that is out there cracking down on crime. You got to have a fire department willing to come out and save grandma having a heart attack. Respectfully. Let me tell you something. Just a little caveat. I work in the geriatric field of nursing. And some fire departments come out and they don't like coming out. But you know what? It's part of your job. Get over it. Anyway, that's a gripe I'll do on another podcast, a live podcast. I'm going to get some nurses on the live podcast. That's what I'm going to do eventually. And we'll talk about all the things that old folks have to deal with, which is, man, if you know some old folks, check in on them, love on them, protect them. Because doggone it, those are some of the most unprotected people that we have. I tell you what, I love what I do. I love taking care of the old people. I don't care if they're a Democrat, Republican. I don't care if they're black, white. I don't care what. I love them. Side note, back to it. So at the end of this meeting, they created a compromise. Obviously, that compromise kind of went out the window today, but what was the compromise?
I mean, I don't understand that.
Well, that's okay, Mayor. Webster's dictionary, it defines compromise as an agreement or a settlement of a dispute that is reached by each side making concessions. Mayor, concessions. Okay, carry on.
Brian, your compromise of increasing the rates.
Yes, sir.
Was that to offset the issue Jim brought up about using or pointing to the general fund? Because
Yes.
you then have a revenue source?
Yes, sir. The idea would be that we would have a dedicated revenue source. We could begin building resources, so we could begin, I guess, putting money in the piggy bank, for a lack of better terms. We could then have some resources available a little later in the year to begin doing some engineering work so that as what would be the permanent plan or the longer term plan, as that developed and was implemented, we would be ahead to implement that instead of behind, which is where some members of council find ourselves because we took the time to commission the study and reconfigure resources to do all replacements in 2022. So the idea is to get out from the position where we are, which is, for some, behind the eight ball, and get back out in front of the issue. That was the reason that I had proposed the compromise, based on the fact that the vast majority of council acknowledged that at some point in time we're going to have to raise the rate. So whether or not...
So what would be the timing of that compromise? So we're talking about Monday, voting on the budget. When would we initiate the increase?
Well, it's council's desire. You could direct that we bring forward legislation for next week for that.
Would the timing need to be that? Would it have to be on the same agenda?
It wouldn't have to be. It could be the following. It could be the following meeting, whenever council would wish. But based on how members of council are trying to tie these two issues together, that's why I had suggested you could just direct that we bring that forward. But if you wanted to stagger that in a different way, that's council's prerogative.
I like the compromise.
And that was a little bit of the compromise that was supposed to go down today, but they didn't meet because they were playing politics. How else do you play politics? You're at a work session. I'm going to go around. I got a week left for the vote, but I'm still going to, I don't care if you're going to hear from your citizens or that you really want to hear from your citizens. I don't care that you want to hear from your constituents. I want to know what your vote is today because all that matters is me and your votes. That's really all that matters. But there are some out there. There are some good council people who care to hear from the residents and bring that back as their vote. So let's hear this. This is a round robin of your powerful Mayor Gore asking everybody how are we going to vote on Monday? And then today happened. He questions everybody how they're going to vote on Monday, and then today someone doesn't show up, and then everybody doesn't show up, and then anyway. All right. I digress. Let's listen to Mayor Gore trying to figure out where everybody's voting at.
Is that?
Yes.
Okay, so if we know we had no votes on the budget, that would be 5 votes. It sounds like you're a yes on the budget if there's a compromise.
Yes.
So at this point, I would ask then, is there a majority objection to the compromise that Mark has offered for a $2.80 increase rate in the water fund or in the water bill? You're objecting or not objecting?
I'm not in for that compromise. I've set my bar, and that's where I'm at.
I thought I'm sorry. Thank you, Mayor. I thought we were supposed to come up with staff's meeting in February to talk about the long term.
Yes, I think you were.
So you skipped over.
I think you stepped out.
I probably did.
And Brian had recommended and reevaluated, went over what his compromise was on that money would be able to start engineering and actually getting the process moved forward.
Okay, yeah, I'm not for his compromise. I'm for doing something now. Put this in the budget. Let's get a vote, and then we'll vote on the budget. I'm not for talking about the budget when we're trying to fix the water main replacement. That's the addition to the budget. I'm a yes for that. I'm a supporter. I'm also a supporter for the long term. February's meeting. It looks like we're going to raise rates in part or in whole to pay for it. And I'm good with coming to that meeting and fixing the problem and developing that long-term fix. This one is put it in the budget and let's get to work on fixing the water mains.
Do you have an objection to the increase?
Increase in water?
I'm talking to Nina now. Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
I want the 4.5. I was wanting the 4.5.
So you're no in the compromise. You just want $4.5 million in the budget.
Yes.
Don?
So far, I haven't gone wrong following the direction of Mr. Bell, and I do feel that this is a threat to our bond rating. I'm not in favor of the 4.5. My vote would be no for that. So I do have an objection.
So Mark has offered a compromise of increasing the rate of 283. So are you against that compromise at this point too? Or against the compromise as well as the...
No, I have no problem with the compromise. I have a problem with going against the advice of our finance director.
Richard?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be considering my vote on Monday. Thank you.
Well, we're attempting to figure out what you're going to be voting on Monday.
I believe I'll be voting on the budget, sir.
So yes or no?
That's what I'll be casting on Monday.
Could you be any more vague?
I could, but it would take about another hour.
We're going to be here.
We don't know what we're voting on. Mark has offered a compromise. And unless there's a majority objection to that compromise, then, and without you letting us know whether you'd be objecting to that, is what's going to tell us what's going to be on the agenda for you to actually vote on.
So, Mayor, I believe myself and others have made it very clear that we are looking for an immediate response to this. The amount of 4.5 has been initiated. I provided information on that. Other council members have provided information on that. If it's a yes vote, it's a yes vote. If it's a no vote, it's a no vote. But that is where I'm standing at, sir. At $4.5 million, we have talked about it for many years. Again, we told the residents on this dais that we were going to raise their rates last year, and we were going to initiate a bond and inject $3.75 million, and that never happened. So now we're going to go and additionally add more rate increases to the residents with more promises that weren't kept. And that was directly from the meeting minutes of December of last year. And I believe Councilman Campbell came up with that revenue source of $300,000 to identify the amount that was going to be injected of 3.75. We passed it in March, and that never happened.
Okay.
I agree with Mr. Webb. I'm not going to go against Mr. Bell. I will pass the budget as preceded, and I am not in favor of passing on to the customers, but if the end user needs to pay the tab, they need to pay the tab unless we find a funding source that's better. I'd love to hear Mr. Otto and Sean Lyons' plan.
You just did.
Yeah, multiple times.
Okay. Yeah. Nancy, what do you think? What do you think?
I think it's irresponsible for us to put $4 million in the budget, assuming that it's coming out of the general fund, and to put our bond rating at risk because we have so many developments that we have approved. And I think it's poor fiscal planning. From what I'm hearing, the compromise is not going to have the support to move forward. but I'm in favor of doing a solid long-term plan and passing the budget as it is right now. And like 3 months from now, we'll be working with the firm that did the study, asking them options for funding, doing several what-ifs to get the best solution. That's the way you take a study and use it. You don't take it at face value when you first get it. So I'm for moving forward with the budget as it is right now and putting a solid, realistic budget together in the next couple of months.
Okay, so I don't hear there's enough support for a compromise at this time, so we will just have the budget as presented at Monday's meeting, and it'll get a fair up or down vote.
Mayor?
Yes.
I believe the issue that was brought up was an amendment to the budget, and that should be voted on first. So unless we have, if you follow what you normally do, 5 council members against it, it'll go on the agenda for an up or down vote before the budget. That's what the discussion, the recommendation was. I'll let Councilman Otto speak for himself. I don't want to speak for him, but that was my understanding.
That is correct. That is how that conversation.
Okay, so yes. So is there a majority objection to adding the budget as it stands? So if there's a majority objection to adding the budget to the meeting as it stands, then that would certainly mean that we would need to amend it. Mark?
I don't want to lengthen the agenda any longer, but I came here tonight after talking to Richard Shaw, and I thought we were serious about a long-term solution to a long-term problem. And I thought the $4.5 million that we talked about over the telephone injected in the 2023 budget was going to come along with it, some sort of plan. I thought we would have that dialogue and address it at least a little. We're not addressing it at all. It isn't my compromise. It's your city manager's compromise, your interim city manager's compromise. It's not my compromise.
I get it, but there doesn't seem like there's no support for that either.
Okay, well, I'm trying to get some votes.
The whip.
We have an issue that Mr. Bell's brought up about just putting $4.5 million worth of additional debt on the budget. City manager, if we would consider a modest increase on Monday, you and staff could get behind and work out the details to put a $4.5 million increase into the budget for this water main project for 2023. And if that's not correct, then I miss what you said.
Okay, so we are not, I just want to be clear. My job, Jim's job, is to make you aware of the potential consequences of your decisions. I'm not advocating for or against anything.
Horse.
If you've asked for my opinion about what I think should be done, I've shared that with you. But as I've said previously, and as several of you have reminded me, while I get paid to offer you my opinion, you are not obligated to take it. So if council is okay, if the majority of council is okay with knowing that there is a risk to your bond rating, to the city's bond rating, and you are willing to trade that risk to demonstrate to your constituency that this is a value, and that is the way that you want to direct the city staff to fund, then we will do that. We won't fight you about it. We won't object to it. We've offered you our opinion, and we'll do what we've been instructed to do by the majority of council. But the fact of the matter is, this kind of money for this kind of purpose, as how it affects the city, is not my responsibility, and nor is it my place to make that decision on your behalf. That's your responsibility to make that decision. And staff and I will execute that to the best of our abilities. Our job is to provide you the advice so you have as much information as you can, and you make the decision with the best knowledge that we can empower you to have. Period. So yes, to your question, sir, if that is the will of council, based on the discussion we've heard, then we will make it so.
You come up with an idea. You shared that idea. Surely it wasn't just to throw out yet another idea. I thought it was to mitigate the issue that our finance director, Mr. Bell, said.
Yes, sir.
Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if that compromise, that suggestion was adhered to, and it was placed on the agenda Monday, and it was voted on, a modest increase, that would help alleviate and mitigate some of the problems that Mr. Bell brought up. And Mr. Bell brought up a problem with our bond rating.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That's why I support that.
I mean,
And
fully understand that.
And I don't want you to think that I said something and then backed up.
No.
But I thought tonight included a real issue where we were going to address 2023 and beyond. And I think that's what we were going to do.
I still think that's what we're looking to move forward on. I don't think there's any objection on this council that at some point in time we're going to have to do a rate increase.
Yes.
I've never heard that objection in any way, shape, or form.
And staff is telling us if there's not some compromise, not some resolution here, it's going to affect our bond rating. Is that correct, Brian, before you leave?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay. I could see it in his eyes. He was
Right.
Yeah. So.
Nancy?
Yes, if we add the rate increase, it's going to, as a compromise, it's going to require additional legislation, right? It would be separate legislation.
And screw the residents.
And I mean, I'm just doing the math. $2.80, which is what that compromise was, raises $500,000
Okay.
of the $4.5 million.
So
Of the 3.2 that were short.
I propose that we put that legislation up for a vote on Monday.
From the meeting that we haven't had in February.
Right.
Well, I still think there's still the issue of, okay, look. You have to figure out what is going to go on the agenda on Monday.
Well,
Hold on. We have a
All right. I let it play out as long as I could. Nothing went on the agenda for Monday because they canceled the meeting. Are you awake? Are you awake? Wake up. It's time to wake up, Huberheights. Come on. I've been here. Oh, Lord have mercy. I've been on Brick City Town Hall, been here trying to wake you up. Look, my opinions aren't always right, but doggone, when it comes to things like this, I am spot on. Spot on. With the recall on Janelle Smith. Spot on. Don't do it. You're just asking for trouble. I was right, and that's why I got people still coming after me today, because I warned them. Don't do it. It's stupid. It'll be horrible for the city of Huberheights, and it's going to be. You'll see. I was spot on about the city manager. Spot on. Where's he at? Not in Huber. Pellbrook or something like that. Spot on. I'm spot on with this because I pay attention. Ladies and gentlemen of Huberheights, pay attention to your local government. You'll figure it out too. I'm not a genius. I'm just a guy who pays attention and follows what is going on. Listen, I appreciate you listening to this podcast. We're going to do more. We have to do more. Doggone it. I don't want to be involved in Huberheights city politics. I'm trying to stay away, but it's like a beacon of, I don't know. It's my kryptonite at the same time. I care about my family who live there. I care about my friends who live there. I care about, my doctor who lives there. Good night. Anyway, so I'm going to get off here. Sundays, 9:45. Join us, YouTube, Matt, Doc Truman, Rumble, Matt, Doc Truman, or what? Truman's Town Hall without the apostrophe. Truman's Town Hall podcast on Facebook. That's where you'll find us. I'll end with this. My buddy called me tonight. We do a regular Sunday show. We talk to a lot of different politicians coming up to the last election. A couple of the politicians you folks never heard of. David Ezerati. I know folks have heard of him. We had him on the podcast. We had Marshall Usher and Shannon Walker, who were running as write-ins for governor on the podcast. That's over at the YouTube page. Just a whole bunch of people. Tori Maris, who's got a huge following out there. She ran for Secretary of State in the state of Ohio. So we're gonna dive deep into some things like that. But right now we're into talking to pastors. We talked to a pastor, the former co-pastor over at Engage City Church, Will Ramsey. We talked to him not too long ago. We talked to Pastor Jamie Adams out of Tennessee just this last week. We're going to talk to another fella coming up this Sunday. And, wherever we go with this podcast, I don't know. I just like talking to folks, getting their stories, understanding who people are, because people are interesting, don't you think? Look, I don't hate anybody on that city council. I got to be honest with you. I think some of their rulings, some of their edicts, some of their decision-making is dumber than a box of rocks, but I still don't hate them. They're probably not going to invite me over for Christmas dinner, but that's okay. It is what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for diving into Truman's Town Hall tonight. I hope you learned something. truepodcast@gmail.com. There is a meeting coming up for the Brick City Town Hallers. December 21st, there's a meeting. Our focus right now, and it's not a secret. It definitely isn't a secret. We're going to be working on term limits, because this kind of political back and forth, term limits will fix it. I'm convinced term limits is going to fix it. December 21st, if you want to join us, if you want to work on term limits in the city of Huber Heights, December 21st, email me, truepodcast@gmail.com. Talk to you later, folks. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. Share with a friend, especially if you live in Huber Heights. This stuff is uber important. All right. Talk to you later. Have a great Christmas. Bye-bye.